The code is visible to you? Okay. So I'll start with the simple program today. So what do you think? What will be the output of this program? Error or there will be output? What do you think? First of all, tell me this will compile or not? Huh? It will compile? Yes, this will compile. But if you run it, then it is showing an error. What kind of error it is showing? It is showing arithmetic exception. This is called exception. In C, it's called division by zero error, right? And it will just terminate the program. Here also the program is terminating, but you can do something here extra. So the problem that is happening here, why it is allowing to compile? Because it is not a major issue. And Java thinks that you should handle it by yourself. As a programmer, you need to handle it by yourself. That's why Java is allowing you to compile it. But at runtime, if you are doing this type of mistake and you are going for a division by zero, because the value of B is zero now, right? So this is a division by zero error. If you go for this type of mistake, then your program will halt. So if you want to handle it, then you need to handle this exception here, this thing here. So now what I can do, just concentrate on the code or no need to think about what I am doing here. These are the shortcuts only. You may know more shortcuts than me in VS Code because I used to write code on NetBeans. NetBeans is now, I think no one use NetBeans. So it's all about how much you know about the shortcuts of a IDE. Now see what I have done. I have written a try catch part, and now this exception is called arithmetic exceptions, right? So I'll write arithmetic exceptions dot e, and then maybe instead of writing pin text trace, I'll go for division by zero error. Okay, and then now think about this code. This part has the problem, right? First line is hello, second line is IITH. Now, what was happening previously? See the previous output. It was printing hello here. See, but it was not printing IITH. Why? Because in between hello and IITH, there is a operation here which was creating division by zero, and your program was terminating there. Now, what I have done now, your program will not terminate. If such kinds of issues are happening, you are handling this issue, and after handling this issue, you are continuing. And this should be there, right? Whenever you are executing a software, it's not terminating unnecessary every time, right? If something is happening, you should handle this situation and then it should continue. This is how you need to write a program. That's why it is called exception handling. There can be an exception here. The exception here is division by zero. This will raise the arithmetic exception. If you are not handling this exception, not writing this try catch thing, then what will happen? It will just throw the exception, and that exception will terminate your program. And if you want to handle, just write try. This is how I have written the syntax try, and try is finishing here, and ignore this part. If you ignore this highlighted part, then what I have written, I have just written a try, and I have written these three lines are now inside that try. That part is clear, right? After that, I have written a catch. So once this Suppose that whenever you are executing this line, integer a equal to integer c equal to a by b. Whenever you execute this line, from that line to jump sketch. So assume that after this line there are some more lines are here. Maybe I'll just write it here. This this high will never print. Why? Because whenever you're executing this line will create an exception. This line will create an error, division by zero. That's called it will raise an exception. So from here, your code will jump from here to the catch part. And you need to catch that exception. What kind of exception it will create? It will create an exception called arithmetic exception. And see, I have written a catch arithmetic exception. You need to remember how I have written. In the class name. You are must continue this one. How I execute this part, what it will print part will be hello. Then what it will print? It will print high. It will not print high, right? Then it will next it will print division by zero error. And then it will print IAT also. It is clear? But it will not print high. Why it will not print high? Because before that line, there is something called A by B, where B has the value 0. So it will raise an error called raise an exception, not error. It will raise an exception called division by 0, and it will raise arithmetic exception. So if you are not writing this code inside a try catch, then your program will terminate. Okay. How? Because it will throw an exception. You have not handled it. You are passing the responsibility to JVM, and JVM will terminate your program. So in that exception, you need to handle. And if you handle it, you can do whatever you want there. And then it will continue from that part. This is like normally, suppose sometimes if your machine crash or if the machine hangs, something happened, your software should not completely terminate. It should handle this and then continue. It may happen many times. Suppose you want to open a file and that file is not available, then it will say file not found. If you are not handling that situation, then your program will terminate. But just you are trying to open a file. Suppose you are trying to fill a Google form and it is saying upload a PDF file. You have tried to upload a PDF file or something, that file is not there. Then it should not like that the entire browser should terminate. If it is terminating, then it is not a good design, right? You have not designed it well. So there also there will be exception. After uploading the file, if the file is not correct, if some error happened, then it will jump from that to the exception handling part, to the catch part. It will just catch the error and it will say that okay, whatever you are trying to do was not correct, and then accordingly it will reset. Okay, so that's how a software should handle the exception. There are many exceptions, and this is not that straightforward. You need to understand some basic concept. There are lots of concept of exception handling if you read OCP book that I have shared with you. But all this information are not required initially. But there are some very basic information that you must know, otherwise it will be difficult to understand others' code. Because handling the exception is a very common part of Java. Any what you can say standard Java code, if you try to read, you will find many exception try catch part and all. So you should know the high level rule. That's why I've decided to spend one lecture on it. So, yeah, yes. Yeah, so E is an object of this type. You are trying to create an object. So E is a type of arithmetic. E is an object of arithmetic, or you can say reference. So whenever there will be, whenever you try to execute C equal to A by C. Right? If you can ignore E also, then fine, no issue. Uh, no. Syntax error means it will stop in compile part only. Syntax error means suppose you forgot a semicolon, right? Then that's a syntax error. Your compiler will say that no, that is a syntax error. You are not allowed to compile. The exception that I am trying to explain here is suppose your program is running. That time something happened. There is no syntax error. Here there is no syntax error. And every time compiler is may not detect also that there will be division by zero. It's not always possible. Because sometimes maybe this is very straightforward. If the compiler is smart enough, will understand that because b is 0. But maybe sometime you are entering the value of b was 10, suppose and see. So you don't know, it's the runtime value. So this is not a syntax. Okay, so just run it and check what it is showing. See, hello, division by 0 and IITH. All three it is showing, right? So this is called arithmetic exception. There is a huge, there is a long relation are here, and you need to remember this hierarchy. Then only you know the basics of exception. It is starting with object class. Every class inherit extend object class, right? So throwable is the class which is the root of all exception and error. And throwable also extend object. Obviously, any class extend object, right? That is clear. So now start from throwable. Throwable is the class which is the root of all kind of exceptions. So now under these there are two kinds. One is error and one is exception. Some always the error. They cannot be replaced with exception. There may be some very critical kind of error. At that time, your program to the you cannot handle it. Suppose suddenly vanish, or suddenly when you are executing, your DRAM is corrupt and you don't have any memory. So that's the error. You should stop at that time. So that's why there are something called error. That is a serious problem. You cannot handle that. At that time, your program will die. But there are many other cases when you can handle the situation and you don't need to terminate. Those are called exceptions. And so exceptions are divided into two parts. One is called checked exception and unchecked exception. So checked exception I have not discussed yet. I'll discuss after unchecked. So whatever I'm discussing here is called unchecked exceptions, and they also called runtime exceptions. Runtime is those will compile your code if those type of issues are there. For example, in this code, there is integer a equal to b, c equal to b by a by b. There is an issue. You know there is an issue, right? But compiler will allow you to compile that, and that exception will only occur when you are executing it. Those are called runtime exceptions. There are other runtime exceptions are also there. For example, your array size is 20 and you are trying to write something like this, array 50 equal to 10. What will happen? In C it will show error, right? Here it will say array index out of bound exception. You can see this is also a part of exception. First of all, throwable. In throwable, there is a subclass error which is extending throwable. There is a subclass called exception which is also inside this exception, there are an exception which is extending exception. These all are class and inheritance rule applies. Then there is one arithmetic exception that I am currently showing you. Division by zero to arithmetic exception. Next one is called null pointer exception. Next is array index out of bound exception and illegal argument exception. So out of this, excluding the last one, I will show you an example of first three. But don't be confused here, right? You just need to remember array index out of bound. Writing is not that difficult if you know the rule. Array A capital, index I capital. You just need to remember this term, array index out of bound. Writing is not that complex if you know the rule. Though the names are very lengthy. So why I am using VS Code today? I just want to save time. I'll still suggest you not to use VS Code. Try to run a code in Notepad. That's how you'll remember all these things very well. I'm only using it to save time in class. So now remember this relation. If I am arithmetic expression is a class which is a subclass of exception. Runtime exception is a subclass of this exception. These relations, this hierarchy you need to remember every time. Those are very important when you are catching an exception. I'll come to this point again. Now here, instead of this, suppose I'm commenting this part and I have an array here, integer array new 30, and then here I'm trying to access array 50 equal to 10. What do you think? What will happen? It will work? It will work? Which kind of error it will show? If you go here, it should show array index out of bound. Now tell me what will be the output of this code. Maybe this line I'm just say that think carefully and tell me what will be the output. First line it will print hello, no issue. Then it will print hi. No, it will give win. Then where it will print? After hello, what it will print? Huh? What you were saying? Create except. It cannot handle it. Just tell me what will be the output. If I run, ignore the error, what will be the output? How many lines it will print? First line it will print. IITs. You don't print IITs. So you don't only zero it will print. Yeah, the shots are recording. Huh? Exception will be clear. Area out of bound will be print or not? Why? I already yeah, so what is this? There is a try catch not fetching the correct error. Oh, because here the error is not arithmetic exception error. The error that is coming, the exception that is raising by this line number 8, right? Area 50 is 10 is line number 8 or 9. So whatever it is, so this line, whatever exception it is creating, it is not an arithmetic exception. So even if you run this code, it is not correct. What it will happen? It will not handle it. I think it will still show an error. See, see, it is showing error in the out of bound error. Your program is terminating. It is only printing hello. It is printing hello here, and then it is going through this line, and at this line, it is throwing an exception. This exception is called array index out of bound exception, and you are not handling it. So then you are whenever if you don't handle anything, then you are bypassing the responsibility to someone else to handle it. Who is someone else? This is JVM. And JVM handling means he will just terminate your code. That's why if program is terminating and it is showing array index out of bound and which line it is also showing. How to prevent this? Instead of arithmetic exception, this should be array index out of bound exception. If you write this and run, then everything is fine. Okay, so that point you need to understand that which kind of exception you want to handle. If it is not correct exceptions, then it is meaningless. Can we catch whatever? Yes, I'll come to this point. Now, is there anything called default prediction? Try catch one. I'll come. There are many interesting points. I'll come to this point one by one. Just ask this question again, maybe after half an hour if I'm not covering it. Suppose there is something called string s equal to null, and then here what will happen? What do you think? What will be the output here? There is a string called s. Huh? It's not right. Oh. There is no compilation error now. When I run this, what will happen? This is also not everything not correct because it is a null. In C, it will say segmentation fault. You are trying to access a memory location which is not defined, right? It means your memory is not defined and you are trying to access that memory. It's called segmentation fault in C. Here it is called null pointer exception. You are trying to access a object or access a memory location which you have not defined yet. So S is not pointing any location. Normally what we say that okay, S1 is pointing this object. Nothing is like this. It is pointing null. And you are trying to access a location. So it will throw you null pointer exception. And since at this moment you have not handled null pointer, it will not show anything. But if I change it to this null pointer exception, then it will be handled automatically and it will print. It is handing null pointer only just for this string. It is showing array out of bound. But I can write null here. Then it will print null. Fine. So these three you understood. If I go back to this relation, individually all three you understood, right? When to call arithmetic is clear. When to call array index point of it is clear. Then this null pointer is also clear. Illegal argument is mainly because of function call when the arguments are not matching. I don't have any exact example for it now. You can just cross check it. You'll find. Now what I am doing is, if this is your code, right? Then in this code, there are three possible mistakes are there. And you don't know. In this way, if you write this code, definitely this line C equal to A plus B means it is creating a problem. It is clear to you. But what I say that maybe at compile time, every time it may not be sure because this B may be runtime. Maybe you will enter this value through scanf, or this B may depend on a value of some calculation. So it may vary runtime. So this line that I have highlighted now, in this line, the value of B may or may not be zero. If it is zero, then it should throw an exception. It is not zero, then it will not throw exception. It will go to next line. So this is you try to understand this, but these errors are dynamic. They are not static. Depend on value zero. Here I statically define value B is zero. But if I assume that B will be value is depend on some calculation and all that value, suppose every time I'm doing generating a random value here, it may be also possible, right? So every time it is not zero, suppose if it is not zero, then it will execute as it is. If it is zero, it will stop there. Similarly, next one, it's here. What I have written is array 50, but maybe assume that here there is something called y is 50, and I am using here y. This can also happen, right? So here also the value of y is dynamically deciding support. Then it may happen that these out of bound exception that I am saying, it will not come every time. It will come occasionally. When it is not coming, everything is fine. But if it is coming, there should be something to handle it. Similarly, the last one also. So all these errors, it's not like the way I have written it here. It looks like that statically every time it will come here. But in your real life program, those may or may not come in every occurrence. But suppose if you have this type of code, then you should handle all these three because they will not come every time, but they may come sometime. And even they are coming for one single time, then your program will be terminated. And you don't want to take that risk. So you need to handle all three. So you just need to write three catch. One catch is already there for null pointer exception. I'll just copy paste it. Null pointer, then what should be the next one? Arithmetic expression. Division by 0. And this one is array index out of bound. Huh? Just 1 minute. Can we print a class name where? Ah,
Of all these sections.
ah,
And if we print e dot get class,
easily.
accordingly it will.
If you say e dot get class, then it will print null pointer exception. Okay. Now this code, but if you run this code, what it will print? At this moment, what it will print if you run this code? First error it will encounter here only, right? Then from here, where it will jump? Catch which catch? There are three catch now. It will from here it will go to arithmetic and it only print division by 0. It will not go to any other catch. It now depend on what kind of exception it is raising. If the exception is raising by this highlighted line, it will only go to arithmetic expression catch. And then from here it will jump and directly go to IITH. Okay? But if this line is not creating problem is creating by this array y, then where it will go? Array index out of bound. It will go there, it will handle that problem and it will go jump back, it will go down to IITH line. You need to understand all three, not as switch case. The first one is executing the remaining case is also one by one, nothing like that. Whichever exception is raising, only that case will execute and then it will jump from there. Okay?
So
Huh?
it is terminating the code better.
No. That's why I have given an example.
Like if I write C equal to every,
Hmm.
I put E equal to 0, so garbage will be replaced into C.
Ah.
My program will run on the garbage value.
Ah.
But I don't.
Yeah, I'll come back to this point. First of all, you need to understand what is error and what is exception, right? Error means suppose you are if you are doing a very critical task and if there is a mistake, then if you think that no, that mistake is not possible to handle, then you should terminate. But yes, I say suppose you are uploading a file in a Google form and file failed because of some reason. You should not see the browser, right? They will not try after something. or maybe retrying. This kind of thing you can say, right? So this is a distinct task. So now what you say that, okay, suppose in this case division by B, if you allow it, then it will create an issue, right? But what I have done, when I am catching it, I am going to eliminate, I am just printing division by zero. But that is only for class. It is your part where you need to handle the issue. You need to handle what is appropriate for it at that point. That you may need to write a long code here. Here it is just saying that, okay, there was an issue, I just handled this issue. What you want? You need to write the code here. How you need to handle. If you think that no, there is no way to recover, then you can write the exit code here. Right? So that is up to you. I'm just printing here because in class I need to explain.
Yeah, because you see,
Yeah?
very fancy,
Huh.
sitting, yeah, things.
You clear?
Like, I want to catch automatic exception.
Huh.
C is equal to
Zero.
A.
Equal to A. Then in, in exception, division by zero, that I did, right? That I am not writing real software, right? I'll just write C.
So it's like,
That is good. That you need to. So basically, it's a high level idea. I'm just saying, yes, you are handling it, but what rule you need to write to manage the problem, that is up to you. That I'm not doing here. But something as I said that you are working, someone has removed the RAM from your that is convenient. You cannot handle the situation. That is called error. And that's why there is a difference between error and exception. The thing that you think it is manageable, that is called exception. Now I'll show you an interesting thing here. One more catch. And this is called exception E. I'm using this editor first time. So what do you think? What to be the output now? This is raising the issue. Clear, right? What is the output now? One more. Then why it is not going arithmetic exception now?
Actually, one that's not handles the error and very slow error after.
Yeah, but I think it will not allow you to run out, compile also. See, there are some red lines, right? It means that it will not allow you to compile. Let me try to compile it first. See, it is not allowing you to compile now. Why? Because the way you have written code, if you remember the map, why is exception? Exception is a super class of all this. So if you write exception, it means that you are not handling these issues specifically. Every time only exception will go. It's a division by zero error or because it's S for polymorphic, right? This is another super class. So if this type of situation is there, anything happen, it will only go to exception. It will not go to specific error. You are not getting specific condition that where you need to handle separately arithmetic problem, where index found. It will you are not allowed to do. Every time it is going to the same problem. Now, suppose your job is done by this one case only. You don't need to separately handle division by zero or arithmetic array index or you just want to handle it. Then just go for exception. And you remove all these three here. If you go for this, it is fine. But if you want to handle specific exceptions separately or individually, then don't write exception at the beginning. If you write, then it will create another problem. But if you write it at the bottom, then there will be no issue. If you just sorry, what I have done. Hmm. See, now there is no compilation issue and it will compile also. It is compiling. Now, huh?
So, even though they write except in the down,
Hmm.
why is it causing compilation error? The next three lines will never execute, but why is it a compilation?
It is showing compilation error because compiler understood that this is not the purpose because there is no this remaining three, null pointer, arithmetic, and arranged, they will never exist. Someone is writing for all these things because of some purpose, right? Assuming that this will run, if division by zero, then this will run, if array index found, then I'll catch it here. You are writing exception on top of it, and these are dead code. They will never execute. Compile time only you know that this will never execute. That's why compiler is saying you are doing something wrong, where you are writing all this code, it will never execute. So compiler will not allow you to do it because it's not dynamic. Even there is a 1% chance that this will execute when you are, that compiler will not say anything. That's why it is not saying handling this division by zero. Because it is new now. So it is definitely sure if you write exception with the handling of that these things are set code, never execute. But why it is allowing this? It is not that. Can you give me an example when the last one will execute? No issue, something. If your exception is not these three, something else, then that will be handled here. If it is division by zero, there is a catch. There index bound, there is a catch. Okay? There is a catch for null pointer also. But your issue is something else. Suppose you are trying to open a file. That will create input output exception. That case, if you have not handled it, right? This exception will handle it. I'll tell this point, but I'm just I have not come to checkpoint. But yes, just any other exception, it is checked or unchecked, whatever it is. Because if you go to and see the where exception is sitting, exception is the father of check and uncheck both. So if you write exception here, any type of exception, it will not go beyond that. So that point you need to understand very carefully. In any try catch, in catch part, if exception is written, then it is capable of catching any exception. But why we should not use it? Because if you are using it, you are not specifying that which kind of error you want to handle. And it is very generic. If you just want that you don't want to terminate your program, it should continue, then go for exception. And this is not giving you power to handle each exception separate.
Code that is a get code, that's where the compiler. Like similarly, if I define some variable in C and never use it in the code later. So then compiler should run that kind of thing.
Compiler is not saying error, but you want compiler it.
You also can understand.
It can also remove it, but yeah, compiler is not doing. I also not. It's a very good question why it is not doing. Anyway, it is that code. But maybe one reason why it is not doing it, maybe compiler is thinking that user has written it for some purpose and because of some mistake it is not doing. Maybe instead of issue, it can also send warning, something like that. Also, that find that you have written all these things but it never needs. But the choice, I think your question is correct. Why you are doing it for it? Code optimizer can remove that part also. But if code optimizer is silently removing it, maybe user wanted all these things. So that is not a solution. But this is a choice of compiler. They can give a warning also, I think. Okay. So I think this is clear. Many parts are clear from here. So now I am trying if I'm writing a function. What I have done here is nothing called in Java. It's just a shortcut in editor. So what I have done, I have moved these three thing in a separate function. I think this function is clear to you, right? No problem. What I am doing here, instead of writing these three line, sorry. Okay. I just bypass all these things to a function, and function will execute all these things and give me a value, right? Now this division by zero error will happen in that function that I am calling from here, right? So now go to this function. If you go to this function here, because of this line, the issue will create, right? But I have not written try case here. This is also a common situation in programming, in Java programming. What will happen in this case? Do you think it will still run as it is and it will still throw a null division by zero error? No. It is exactly same. Whatever I say, output will be exactly same. Why? Because this function is throwing the exception. Yeah, there is a problem here. Automatically, this will throw an exception. Means the rule of exception is if I cannot handle it, then I'll bypass it to someone else. Someone else who has called. Suppose this function is called by that function, right? So if it is not handling here, it can throw it. Throw it means I will throw it to another. I cannot handle it, you handle it. So that is always possible. So what automatically since it is unchecked, right? So what you don't need to write throw and all here. Unchecked, this error is not very frequent. It may or may not happen. If it is happening here, then if you are not doing anything, then you bypass the responsibility from here to who has called it. Who has called? We called it from that try crash call, right? And there I am handling it. You remember, right? So it will go there and there is the exception. So it will handle there. If I am not written it there also, then it means I am bypassing it to JVM and JVM will crash. So this is how it is handling. If it is, there is an exception and this particular function is not handling it, no problem. It will just throw it to from where it is called. And there it will, if there is a try case, it will handle there. And if you are not handling it, then it will go to the upper level. And by there, if you have not defined anywhere, you are not handling it in your code, then it will go to JVM. I think this part is also clear now. Do you have any other important point? Yeah, one important point is I think finally, I think finally, yeah. There is something called finally. I'm not. If you write finally, then that part will always execute. So after all catch, that last at last you can write something called finally. Whatever you write in finally, that part will always execute. Either exception is happening, not happening, you are catching anything is there. After that, finally will also execute.
And then we don't write any other catch also, then it will won't show error.
It will. Which one?
If you don't write any other catches also,
Ah.
show error.
Other cases, which character?
Like if there is zero division error,
Hmm.
and we did not write catch for that,
Ah.
but we wrote finally.
Error. It will hand. It will create exception and exception. No, it will not. Suppose you are right. They are saying that if you remove this one now and finally is there, it will throw exception. It will terminate your program, but before terminating it, it will execute what is written in finally. I think. But problem is same.
But we are writing kind of the catch for that, right?
No, finally is not a catch. It is something for resetting or something. Suppose there is a buffer, reorder buffer. If you want to read a file, then you need to open a buffer. You open a buffer, but somehow file was not created. Then exception will happen. And if file is created, then there will be no exception. But in both cases, you need to close the buffer. So either your program is executed correctly or you go on through a exception and all. In both cases, if there is something which is common to do for you, then write it in final. This is that straightforward. Like you are executing a code, but by either there are two guys, either it will execute completely, or in between there will be a jump from there to try catch part. In both cases, if you think that there is something that you need to do, in both cases, then you write it in the finally part. That's it. But finally, you don't think that finally is a superset or something that will catch all error. It will not catch any error. If in this case, if I remove it, then yes, I have written the code now to terminate because division by zero error will be happen. Okay, so this part is done. Now I'll move to the another interesting part. I have written a code for it also. What will happen if I run this code without this try catch? Maybe if I just comment this line. you cannot run it also. What is this code? I'll just explain. I have not covered this one here. This is how you need to read a file in Java. You need a buffer reader. Buffer reader, new buffer reader, and then new filer. Ultimately, I am trying to read test.txt. You don't need to understand the complete syntax. Just try to remember that by this line, I am trying to read a file called test.txt. That you have done in C programming only. And for that, you need a buffer reader. So, by if you are successfully able to open this file, then the object will be created for and it will be pointed by BR. Okay. But if there is any issue, then BR will point now. Okay. This is fine. So, there are many issues here. Maybe one issue is file is not there. You say that the test.txt, if I run this now, it will not run. Why? Because this file itself is not there in my code. In this folder, it is not. So this is a very general issue. These type of issues are called checked exception. And if you are writing this line, buffer reader, this line you are writing, you should write it inside try catch. If you are not writing, then compiler will not allow you to compile your code also. This is called checked exception. This is not unchecked. Unchecked or something like division by zero, error index out of bound. For that, compiler is not showing error to you.
Some under null pointer exception kind.
No, this is something, yeah. Null pointer, if nothing is there in BR, then it is null pointer. But this is dynamic. But even in addition to this, there are some other issues also. If file is not, then this is a different issue. You could say, yes, unless you are, suppose BR is there, after that, if you are writing BR.readLine, and in this case, BR is null, then null pointer exception will also come. But these are extra on top of that. If file is not there, then it is called file not found. If file is there, but somehow the format was very difficult and you could not read it, then it is called file input output issues. So these exceptions are there, and you must need to handle it. If you are not handling it, then your program will terminate here. And as I said, you are trying to open a file, and because of that, there are some issue. It should not terminate your program. It should say that no, in format is not good, or maybe only PDF, except whatever it is. Suppose this here you are expecting a PDF file. You are trying to load a TXT. It should not terminate your code, right? It should say that no invalid file format, whatever, and it should continue. Situation. So in this case, if it is a checked exception, you cannot compile your code without writing a try catch. So you need to write try catch. See, this red line means if I try to go for Java C, it will not compile. So you must go for a try catch. And what exception it is showing? IO exception means input output exception. If you go to this part, you go here exception runtime done. If you go here checked exception, in checked exception, this is called IO exception, input output exception. And input output exception, there is one more subclass of it called file not found exception. Okay. So even file is not found, you have not written file not found, but you have written IO exception, then it will handle this situation also because it is a super class of it. Okay, now if you run this code, since this text.txt, this is not in the same folder. If I try to run it, it will just say error in reading file. Why? From where it is coming? Because it is written in this part, error in reading file. Why? Because this file test.txt is not there in this folder. Because I have not created this file. So if this type of errors are there in your code, then you need to handle it. One more thing. This is one part, but there is one interesting part is if you are not writing it, then also you can do something. It is not allowing you to run, right? I can write something and after that it will allow. See, now it is allowing. What is the difference? Difference is if you write try catch, then you are handling the problem. And if you are writing throws, means I don't know, if situation happen, I'll just forward it to someone else in the sitting upper layer. So now, if you write throws here, if you see throws, I will exception. Means if something is happening here, some issues or some problem will happen here, I understand there is a problem, I will not handle it. I am throwing it up. Throwing it up means whoever called main, this function, that one should handle it. Who is calling main? Directly JVM. So it is going to JVM. JVM will handle it. And JVM will crash. They will not crash, JVM will terminate your program. So this is one thing I'll show you. I'll not transfer it to JVM. I'll do something else here again. Please remember all these things. I'm recording it also, but if it's possible, write 1 or 2 lines. It will help you later. Suppose this one, the entire thing I'm moving to a function. Whatever I've written, I'm moving to a function. How? I'm just write a function here. Move, extract, method, get line. Now see what I have written here, get line. And if this is the code, then see, the compiler will not even allow you to compile this code. Why I'm writing it, there is a reason behind this. Did you understood the code? Did you understand the code? It's exactly the same code. Instead of writing these buffer line and all in main program, I'm just putting a function code, get line. And this entire thing I'm written with a separate line. But previously also I have done the same thing when it was division by zero. If you remember. That time it was perfectly fine. Right? That time try case was there in main. And from here, I have written a there are the issue, right? C equal to A by B. It was not creating any problem. But why it is creating a problem here now? Here also, if there is a problem in this case, if there is the exception, if we are not handling it here, it will go from here to here and it should handle, right? But why it is not creating error? If you see these two code, this code and just I'll drag this. What is the difference? Nothing. Here also this will create a problem. But you are handling it in the function from where it is calling. It is not a very problem. Why? It is unchecked exception. So it is not that strict. But the problem here is it is a checked exception. If it is a checked exception, whatever is happening here, either you handle it here or you need to throw. If you want to throw, then you need to write here that I want to throw. You need to write here that which kind of exception you want to throw from. So if these two exceptions, file not found or IO exception, even if you remove file not found, it will still work because this is a super. So if you need to write these kind of exception, it will not handle. And throw it means who has called this something. So now it will work. Even there is a problem happening here, we will throw it will go to the upper level. This point is clear. And if you remove it from main also, it will work. Just tell me one thing now. If I now comment the try and all catch part from main, what will happen? It will compile or it will show an error? Huh?
Because anyway, it is prone to change theory.
Anyone else? He is saying it will not throw error. If I comment all the try part, try, catch, everything I comment, then what will happen?
Which is right.
Huh?
Main doesn't know.
Main doesn't know how to handle its thing.
Yeah, if you get,
What do we need to do?
we should write throws.
We should write throws to main also. Because right now what you have done, this is the unchecked exception, right? You are throwing it from getLine find. GetLine is saying, okay, I have exception, I am providing it to upper level. Upper level is main. In main, if you comment try, you are not fetching in main also. Then main should also forward it to some upper level, right? So you should write throws in main also. If you are not writing throws in main, then compiler will not compile. I'll just show you. If I comment it, see getLine, it is showing error. If I try to run, it will not compile. And if I just copy this code from throws to here, then see it will compile now. Now a good programming practice is never throw exception never throw the exception from main to JVM. It is your program. At least you should handle it. It is not required to handle it in program. From your method, you can throw it to upper part. But you should handle your exception by your. Otherwise, if you are passing it to JVM, then default one is terminating your code. Okay, so exception handling means you should understand the exception and you need to handle it by yourself. Looks very simple, but not that simple. Why not simple? First of all, you need to remember this logic. If you don't know the hierarchy, then first mistake you will do there. And how you will know the hierarchy here? From here, it's not that straightforward. Here also the logic of inheritance is there. Which one is subclass, which one is superclass, all these things you need to remember. This diagram you should keep in your mind. Otherwise, it may create problem for you whenever you are handling exceptions. I'll share this diagram with you, generated from ChatGPT also. But if you go for any Java book, you will get this type of diagram. Okay, and then after that you should know where to throw, which one you need to throw, which one you need to handle. That also is very important. I have few program. Can you tell what it will output here? Division by 0. So do you think it will output A? Which one it will output? B and then B, C, D. Yes. Why C? Finally is written. So it error is creating from this line, so it will jump from this. A will not print, it will go and print B, and then since finally is going, it will execute anyway, then finally and then D. Tell me for this one what it will print. Arithmetic and then
It cannot handle, so you got it.
huh?
It will pass to JVM.
Very good. It will not. It will terminate. It will not print anything because in this case the exception is array index out of bound, and you are handling arithmetic exception. So you are not handling the exception. So whenever the exception will come, exception is array index out of bound. You have not handled, and it's unsaid. So it will go to JVM, and JVM will terminate your program. So nothing will print here. What about this one? What will happen here? This will run.
Yes.
What is the output? Are you sure B?
Yes.
Yes. I think also B should print. Yes, B. Other, did you get this? Why B?
Exception did catch.
Because exception is superclass of runtime also. So since the next it will go from bottom to top, right? Bottom. So since which one is actually it is calling for arithmetic exception, right? Arithmetic is not there. Who is the father of arithmetic? Runtime. And exception is the father of runtime also. So both are there, then it will go for runtime. But if you write exception before runtime, then it will be a compile time error. Will not allow you to do this. What will be the output here? Only null, right? Because null pointer exception is there and this will create null. This will not compile, it is saying already. Why it will not compile? From last row or someone from not from this last row was tutored. Anyone from here why it will not compile? Right. Because the exception is written above, right? So it will not null pointer is the that code here. If I reverse then no problem. I don't have C, I think question 7. This will also not work. Why? First of all, what kind of exception it will throw? Checked or unchecked? Checked. And then what is the issue?
We are not handling errors.
How to fix it?
We can use create.
Where to write throw?
Yes, yeah.
Main we need to write throw IO exception. Because it's an IO exception is a check exception. You need to throw it. Or you need to write try catch. Because I think try catch around read and system it is done. Otherwise you need to throw it. So if I write try catch, then also if you see, if I go for this one, control surrounded by a try catch, then done. See the error is gone. Right. You should also remember whatever I am doing. Then only you can write fast program. All shortcuts I don't know the recent trend in our time. If you are a programmer, you need to find out this PDF fast, keyboard shortcut, print it and paste it in your cubicle. This is the first thing. And you should remember all these things. Then only you will write faster program. I know very less one or two here, but you should know all the shortcuts. Then only you can write. In NetBeans, there are something like 4i and then tab. Then your entire for loop will be written. I don't know. Here there is I'm written SIS out and then system out the print line is coming. And in NetBeans, SO out and tab, then enter line is automatically coming. These are not syntax, but these are very important if you want to write a fast program. So either you go for try catch or you need to throw it. This is not creating problem. Why? Same thing here. I'm calling read and then it is not creating problem. I no need to write throws. Huh? We are catching it in the function that I call. So if you already read, then you are handling it there. You will never bypass the node or responsibility to someone else. So in this case, mail is perfectly fine. So I think these are the high level rule of exceptions. If you know all these things, then your exception is done, mostly done. But still, there are many critical points are there that it's not possible to cover here. For that, please read the OCP book that I said. You will really love it. But you must know these basic concepts, then only you will understand that book. Otherwise, you will not even understand what is written in that book. I'll share this